form. And so
Sorry,
that is,
sorry.
oh, and so that's a place where potential students can ask questions and it goes straight to my email. And so they can kind of get like a prompt response. And so that's been really helpful. And many students that have participated in the program, are kind of like, what are you looking for? What did you like seeing? What was your application experience like? They all really commented on the value of our super detailed website. So that was great. Having a good digital flyer is important. That's something that we send out when we, that's kind of the first thing that we make at the beginning of the recruitment season. That goes out to everyone, everyone that we talk to about the RU. That goes out to make sure that it has, the dates and the pay on it, and kind of just in general, what is an RU? We make sure that's kind of on everything that we do because a lot of students just aren't really familiar with that. What it is exactly, and then and then reaching out to undergraduate program advisors and academic advisors, as well as, specifically related faculty. But those academic advisors are also really, really helpful in schools in your state and bordering states. So I'm here in North Carolina, so we make sure we have everyone in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia, and then kind of like Maryland area. And of course, including those smaller MSI schools. So, the students that go to large research universities and even just really motivated students, they are already searching. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Val.
Oh, just Diana asked if you could advance the slide or if you needed to, because she said she wasn't sure if they were advancing.
Oh, let's see. Is that better?
Yeah, that's the next slide anyway.
Thanks.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, sorry. I like have three screens going and I like am not good at Zoom. Um, yeah, reaching out directly to academic advisors and undergraduate program directors in nearby schools, community colleges, as minority serving institutions in your state is really helpful. And they will do a really good job of promoting the program. They really want their students to have opportunities. And so they, making that contact is really important. And then I would say the last thing that you absolutely need to make sure you do is having a virtual info session. So something that potential applicants can tune into. They have a lot of questions about RUs, your RU in general, things you don't think to maybe advertise, which is, what does a dorm look like? And what kind of things do students do on their weekends? Because like myself and my PI are definitely focused on talking about the projects and the research they're going to do, but the students are also really interested in what their life is going to look like during the program. And so that's a great place for them to ask. And also lots of faculty members and academic advisors tuned into that virtual info session, which I was kind of surprised about. And so that was great too, because then they could take all that information to, the other students in their programs. And then of course, if you've the other kind of things that I would say are your second best are those in-person visits to anybody who's willing to let you come speak to their classes or college clubs or things like that. We've used faculty references of successful REU students in the past. These faculty members, are really good at identifying other students that would be a great match for your program. Social media. And then there's this like large RU Finder website, which again, most students that are using ETAP, that is, they already know how to find all the programs, but I remember it being really quick and easy to submit to this RU Finder. So it's kind of like May as well. And then lastly, if you have time, the related job boards, I've kind of got mixed success on this. I think it got a lot of people reaching out to me that aren't qualified for an RU. So I'm not sure if it was the most helpful thing in the world. I was getting a lot of students that have already graduated and are like kind of early in their careers, which is fine. But of course, they're just not eligible for our specific program. And so it was kind of like maybe a little bit helpful. I don't think it did too much for us. And then same kind of thing with the Facebook career networks. It definitely got a lot of the attention. But then it also got a lot of attention from folks that aren't able to participate in the program. So people that were not citizens or, not and have already graduated or graduate students or things like that.
I have a question. I don't even think I know what REU Finder is, so that's cool. Can you tell us about it?
I can't like too much because I'm not super familiar with it. It's just like an additional website. And I don't know how students find out about this website. I'm not exactly sure. It was something that my PI had sent to me because they, I guess, hold this kind of virtual REU career fair and I believe it was at the end of November last year. To participate in that, it costs like $50 or $100. We decided not to do it, but they will advertise your program for free on their website. And so it's a subscription thing that students that are interested in finding related jobs in REUs, you know, they can sign up and then they'll get kind of like a distribution list of potential opportunities.
Wow, that's super interesting. Okay,
So
cool.
it was fine. Did I find any students from that? No, but again, I just remember it being really easy to submit our program to. You know, it was a little description of the program. Here's our flyer, and it was like, you know, took 5 minutes on my end. So kind of, you know, why not?
Mhm. Okay,
Uh,
thank you. Or you're going to the next slide, are you?
yeah.
Okay.
And then lastly, these are the application questions we use. Most of them are very helpful for us, and you know, we'll use them again. We did include that, you know, one specific about why this program, which seems pretty obvious, but we did get a lot of applicants that were kind of definitely doing general questions or answers for general questions, which is fine. But this kind of helped us identify those who are really interested in our program. And then I would say the one we've decided not to use again is this describing past research experience. I think the students just really weren't sure what we were looking for here. You know, some of them thought they needed to list everything they've ever done. And then other students thought, I think that that might hurt their chances. And so they didn't include anything at all, which is, it just ended up kind of being a throw out question for us. So it took the time for the students and then we didn't end up using it. And so we won't be using that one again. And then I just included our digital flyer there, if
Oh,
anybody wanted an example.
beautiful. Could you share that to us? Well, would you be okay with sharing slides
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
everybody? Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Um,
And that's
anybody,
it.
does anybody want to ask questions or suggest things? Um, I'm wondering about the questions that you ask because I guess one thing that I think it's an interesting opportunity to ask about things that might tell you more about sort of the background of the person or their motivations. For instance, like how have you given back in the past, you know, to the community, and those that can really prompt really different answers that show, you know, levels of socioeconomic privilege or lack thereof, that
Right.
kind of thing. Does anybody else have a question they like for their application? Oh, two people have hands raised. Sorry, I missed that. Greta?
I just had a question about your how you announce it. Also, have you used the handshake platform? I know that there's a great push in the community colleges here in Massachusetts and also other four-year institutions to use that platform. And second thing is that we actually do an interview with our final candidates, and we find that's really helpful. Of course, you know, we're a local program, so then the students can come and they get a feeling for, you know, what we're expecting out of them at that point. And that's when we can ask them things like, do you have anybody who's helping you with mentoring towards your degree? Do you know anybody in the sciences? Things like that. So it
Oh,
both helps with that, you know, they feel committed to us once we've accepted them. And then also we know what their needs are.
those are great questions too, to be able to ask. Yeah, interviewing is not done very much, but I totally recommend it. That somebody else had their hand raised?
Oh, I did. I was just wondering, you know, with the REU search and with the description of some of the outreach that the previous presenter presented. Do you reach out much to the tribal colleges? Because there's like 36 of them. And I know that somebody here is working quite closely with a couple of tribal colleges and tribes, which is awesome. But I'm just wondering about outreach to TCUs and Black colleges too.
HBCUs.
Thank you. My acronym soup is just all over the
There's
place
too many.
today.
For our program, I know that we last year did reach out to all of the HBCUs in the Carolinas. And then I believe the only, or at least to my knowledge, the one specific that is for that has ties for Indigenous students is UNC Pembroke. And so they are definitely a partner. So the program director that has been the director for the last 4 years kind of spearheaded the recruitment this year because I was fairly new. And so I was kind of along for the ride. And so I think he does have a lot of contacts. And I was looking through the list. I think we reached out to 62 institutions specifically. And I should have looked more into that before today because, you know, there's lots of colleges that I've not heard of, smaller schools and colleges in the Carolinas and then nearby. And so, but I think that's something that we can make a better effort for this year, certainly.
Mm-hmm. And Paula, I have a follow-on question. So if a faculty member at a tribal college gets a bunch of, a lot of email flyers and that kind of thing, and feels like, well, I don't know this person, I don't know if I can trust that they'll take good care of my students, or they're bombarded with these flyers, how do you suggest that a program manager start connecting and building a relationship with them?
If you're interested in specifically working with Native and Indigenous groups of students and faculty, I would recommend looking at this directory of the tribal college and finding out who teaches what, and then reaching out to them specifically, because they'll know which students are prepared enough to go into some of these R1 spaces and high impacts programs, and they'll also know what students might not thrive in that space. That's one thing. Making it look very attractive and putting how much the internship is paid is important, because a lot of students are struggling already, and some of them can't even imagine taking time off to try to do a thing because they're too busy trying to survive. So just making it as easy as possible for students, like my internship, I paid for food, housing, travel, both to and from the location at Haskell Indian Nations University where we host it. And then we pay for travel to a couple of research sites. First year was Hawaii, and we had good turnout for everybody wanted to go to Hawaii. I was surprised with the Alaska trip because there was a lot of people that applied for Alaska. I was kind of surprised about that. Next year is going to be Louisiana. I'll be interested to see how many people want to go to Louisiana in June. Probably many, whoever does never been there in June, I'm sure. But yeah, and then the last year is going to be Puerto Rico. And so it's really important to build a relationship with the faculty at those places somehow, some way, because it's, even if you just talk to them on the phone, because if they've never talked to you, a lot of them will just toss you either like, oh, well, I don't know who this is, and I don't know what they do, and I don't know to trust their program. Also, another thing is including a Native person on your committee or on your board or on your evaluation team or something like that. If you're working to help guide the whole process, I know you can't change the ivory tower by adding a drop of brown and stir. It's not going to change the ivory tower, but getting Native people in roles of leadership will encourage Native youth to want to either emulate, follow after, or if they admire their work, they're going to want to work with them or something. Just having somebody there that can understand the challenges that are unique to Native population, Native students, because not only are we dealing with historical and generational traumas, but the boarding school system is not that far away from like my grandparents. My grandfather went to Indian boarding school. And so having an understanding of the history and the politics and some of the relationships between tribes sometimes helps, because not all tribes get along. There's some old blood, and just trying to make sure you have somebody from that community in that space to help everybody. It doesn't just help the Native student, it really helps everybody understand the cultural intricacies that are different, and it's not going to give you cultural competency. I don't want to insinuate that you can quickly learn competency, which I would say we should be learning cultural humility instead of cultural competence. We should be looking at cultural humility, and just being willing to, as an instructor, learn from the student, because they're going to bring in a whole different view, and some of it might blow your mind and really change how you see the world through that lens. And it's just really powerful. I love doing what I do, even though it's hard. I don't understand 20-year-olds.
Those are really valuable ideas. Thank you. And I love for me the one that of having people on your team who have the background and can really help. I mean, I think that there's too much of it, like us and them, obviously, dynamic. So thank you so much for that. And then did somebody else have a comment or a question? And this is now being recorded, so we have that for people to listen to again if they want. Okay, well, should we go to Bridget? Do you want to go ahead? Thank you.
Sure, Val. I have 3 slides. 2 are important. One is just a summary. Let me get that going. All right, can you see okay?
Yes.
Okay, I'll go full screen just so we can see the full view. Okay, so aloha, everyone. My name is Bridget Smith-Konter. I am the PI and boots on the ground director for the Earth Science on Volcanic Islands REU, otherwise known as ESVI. We are stationed at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. I put 2 Hawaiian words here, kind of as a subtitle. Kuikahi and kahanahau. Kuikahi is collaboration and kahanahau is innovation. I thought those were 2 kind of keywords to summarize how to get really a program like this off the ground and really make it special and impactful for a variety of students. There's lots of other words we can sprinkle in here, but those are 2 for the day. We've been going since 2017. We've had lots of successes, a couple of failures for sure. In total, we've had 76 students come through our program since 2017, coming from or representing schools from 42 different states, including Guam, American Samoa, as well as Puerto Rico. One of our goals, like all of yours, is to increase underrepresented participation. So we've done a pretty good job so far. I know these statistics because I just had to submit a renewal proposal like a month ago. We're at 86% right now with underrepresentation. And then one of our sub goals is to really diversify our cohort. And so we have established a goal of 25 to 30% participation for our cohorts. We're not quite there yet. We are at 20%, which is an increase from our last round of funding. But we try and populate our 10-person cohort with 2 to 3 Native Hawaiians or Pacific Islanders each time. It turns out this is really hard. We are inundated with mainland applications. We get somewhere between 300 and 400 applications a year, and we get maybe 4 applications from Native Hawaiians or Pacific Islanders. That's 4 eligible. Sometimes they start and they don't finish their application. So that's a problem, and we're always trying to focus attention on that. But we we do try and pull in the great ones and make sure they have a spot on our cohort. We are hosted by the School of Ocean and Earth Sciences and Technology at UH Manoa. And so we are not just geosciences, as in geology and geophysics, we are also ocean sciences, environmental sciences, biogeochemistry, all that good stuff. So we're pretty broad, which helps us, although my specialization, for instance, is in geophysics. So I have a hard time perfectly connecting mentors with students outside of my own area of expertise. So being super broad isn't always incredibly helpful. But we do pull from a really big group of faculty and researchers. In the past 8 years, we've had almost 40, maybe 45 different people cycling through and serving as mentors or assistants on some level. So just a couple of tips for maybe success. I put 2 kind of headers up here. One is about timing. That's the one on the left. There's no such thing as an REU season. For us, we found out that the REU season is the full year. So you can't really just think, oh, it's a 2-month summer program or something. Pretty much we start in October now. And I put a screen capture of our timeline from our proposal. So I'm not usually this organized, but I had to be for additional funding. So hopefully that timeline isn't too scary. And I'm sorry, the font is pretty small, but feel free to take a screen grab or whatever you need to if you want some assistance with how to plan things out. But really only the pause for us is December and January while we're waiting for applications to file in. And even then we still get students asking plenty of questions, as Julie mentioned. We start the selection process in February. We have a deadline of mid-March to respond to students and provide them with an acceptance letter. And then after that, we get going with lots and lots of cohort building activities. And there's 3 light blue bubbles on this timeline that say ESVI, REU, welcome meeting, group meeting. Anyway, those have been critical. I know that was mentioned a few minutes ago too, to have these types of interactive opportunities before you put students together in a 9-week program. So try and spend the time to put those into your calendar for the students so that they have an opportunity to meet faces and get to know their peers before they arrive. It helps them just in terms of confidence. I could go on and on about mentor training and selection. I won't today, but that is a really important thing. And we've gotten burned by just picking mentors that were available and willing to help instead of really vetting them in the past. So do put some time and effort into figuring out who would be best for your students, not just best to have somebody provide a body to chaperone some research. Okay, and then I put a QR code to our website. I don't think it's perfect by any means, but we've spent quite a bit of time updating it to help with the recruitment process. We always add student testimonials from the previous year. I think I may have copied it. Let me see if I can put it in the chat. Yep, it's in the chat if you'd like to go there also. We have a section on our commitment or our mission statement, which is sort of our core values of what we hope students that are looking for a common place will find attractive. And we've also put our land acknowledgement up there, which turns out to be, I've seen a lot of attention towards that in our applicant pool. I've had students reach out and specifically ask me questions about our land acknowledgement and how our REU specifically addresses some of those things. So these students are really savvy and they're really, they are much more aware of sort of our JEDI, our justice and inclusion and diversity practices than we might know that they are. They know these are buzz things and we put these things up there to attract them and they want to make sure we're not just blowing smoke. So do put some time and attention into your words that go up there. Other than that, I will just say that we are slowly moving the needle. We've had 8 years of data so far, 7, I should say. We're almost on our 8th, but we're getting numbers that are looking encouraging. We have students that started with us in their junior and senior years and are now in grad school or have graduated and are pursuing careers. So 98% of our students that have graduated are in STEM careers, which is amazing. Can't believe that number. I had to check that number many times, but that's pretty remarkable. And I don't think it's from us necessarily. It's just that these students are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and doing something with their pathway. And then we have 76 of them that are actually in graduate school, either pursuing master's programs or PhD programs. So I'm really proud of those two numbers. And then I just left you with a fun little graphic. Our students, yes, they have the opportunity to do some pretty cool stuff in Hawaii, but not all of them have been exposed to live eruptions. And in 2022, our students were on a field trip to the Big Island when Mauna Loa erupted. And so they got to see some really cool stuff that year. It's not always that great every year. Anyway, I will stop here. I'm happy to answer questions or talk offline if anyone has additional comments.
Can you just touch on the Zoom activities that you do for team building?
Yeah, we play games. I a fun one that I've been doing a while is I pick thematic songs about Hawaii and I play them, like the first snippet of them, and I have students have a race to see who knows the name of the song and the singer or the songwriter. That's always a good one, and you can do that for your own community. We do this one isn't online, this is offline, but we have students prepare a biography, a one-pager with a picture and all about themselves. And we collect these and assimilate them together in one document that's just for internal circulation, but we give that to the students and the mentors ahead of time so that they can read about each other and get to know them a bit better. We do breakout rooms and have little games and stuff. There's lots of, the handbook has all kinds of ideas.
Some of which came from you, I think.
Yeah.
Cool. Questions, anybody? Just go ahead and speak up. Or, oh, it looks like Getty, you have a question.
Yeah, thanks, Bridget, for that. This was really lovely presentation, and your program really seems to be very similar in terms of organization to which I intend to do. So I was wondering if you can give us some tips on how you can select faculty mentors.
It's a gamble every time. So we send out an email announcement recruiting faculty members. We tell them what the program is about. We do even offer a little slideshow in case anyone's interested. And we wait for people to trickle in who are naturally wanting to participate. Sometimes you can have just a one-on-one conversation about what the motivation is. Maybe they have a grant where they said they would do something in their broader impact section. And so this will help with that. That's not necessarily the best intention, but the best response is when a mentor says, I really want to work with a motivated undergraduate. And you know you've got a good mentor then. But we've also had to filter some out because of their availability in the summer. So if people are not available, for the full 9-week program, that's okay. But if they're going to be gone like a huge chunk of time, that's really disruptive to students. But in lieu of their presence, there must be a really responsible graduate student or postdoc or something that the students can rely on. And oftentimes group mentors are really great. If you have more than one that work with a student, then that provides the student with additional opportunities to feel supported. So yeah, all of the above and probably a lot more, but you do want to take your time. Even out of the huge pool of faculty members we have and researchers available to us, I still have to sometimes scramble to ask people because this just isn't a top priority for some of those people. So don't pick the ones that are just available because they say yes, pick the good ones.
Thank you.
Thanks. A couple of things that I've heard before from Lisa Rome at NSF that are some of the bigger problems that they hear about. One of them is the absent mentor. You know, somebody who signs up and you don't realize they're going to be away for 3 weeks or something or a month. And that's pretty rough. As you say, it's a good idea to have a group or pair of mentors. And I know Shakila uses the hierarchical. She goes all the way from, faculty grad student to undergrad to high school, and the undergrads actually, they have a high school program, they mentor them. Others were, another problem was the money piece, and that Paulette addressed. It's a good idea to provide money before they actually come to your program, because some people don't have the money to buy food on the day they're traveling or in the first few days, or they can't wait 2 weeks for a paycheck. And it's really stressful for people. So that's another one. But thanks for those ideas.
On that note, I had a student last year, year one, show up with his shoes were falling apart, and
Oh.
that's all he had. And so the money that we provided for his stipend when they got there, he went out and immediately bought a pair of shoes. But I mean, when you work with minority students, that is the kind of thing you have to be conscientious of. And one of the other things that I think that we should be telling our students is when we get out of grad school, that all of these things are very expensive. These like conferences and meetings, and because we get so used to them being covered by the program that we don't face them often. There was another point I wanted to make and I totally dropped it, so I'll think about it.
Bummer. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's true. It's like, I know, Diana, when you've talked before about what people are dealing with, students are dealing with, sometimes, I've seen people, other PIs look shocked because they don't necessarily run across some of these things, like what the student is dealing with. Could you just?
That brings me back to that point. A lot of postdocs or graduate students are expected to use their credit card and then be reimbursed. Many Native and minority students don't have credit cards. Their parents may not even have credit cards. So to be conscientious of, what are the obstacles that the student and you together, because now you're caring for this person in your program, what can you do to offset those kinds of things? Because I know it, like as an early career scientist, I was blown away that I was having to carry the grant because you have to buy things first and they get reimbursed. And had I not had that credit card, I was like, I don't know what one of my cousins would do that doesn't have a credit card and couldn't. I mean, how does that work? So that's something that I learned kind of in a crash course that I think is important for us to kind of pass on those little nuggets of information to each other.
I agree, and that's not just having, even if you have a credit card, you're probably at the limit. A lot of poor students are. And then there's also the issue that a lot of elders and others do not have credit cards. So I constantly find my way fighting university administration over just paying in advance or, doing what you can. Reimbursement doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah, thank you for those. Diana, do you want to add? We only have about 10 more minutes, but
I can go fast.
Okay. Oh,
Okay, my little PowerPoint.
Oh, thanks. Okay, you brought slides.
So I'm at the University of Minnesota, and I talk a lot about strategic planning for diversity. It doesn't just happen. You need to recruit over the long haul. I think if you recruit students every year, you keep recruiting students. But if you recruit mentors or allies, that's a great way to go. See if I can get this thing to actually move forward. There we go. So I run the Sustainable Land and Water Resources REU. It's a program that works with 2 tribal colleges and reservations, and then at the University of Minnesota. So we have 3 teams, one in Montana, one in northern Minnesota with the Fond du Lac Reservation, and here in the Twin Cities. And we work on tribally focused research. All our students are not Native. We run about a 40% Native participation rate, but the majority are underrepresented. You can learn more about us at reuslar.org. And here's our website again. A couple of things that came to me about the website was we run a blog every summer and we make the students blog once a week, each team. And that's on our WordPress blog. The advantage of that is that's our homepage when you go to reuslar.org. So you automatically see real posts from all the students. And then we also have a nominate a student tab on our website that leads to a very simple Google form where faculty can put in the name of a student and their contact information. And then when they do that, I write the student and I say, somebody has told me that you would be a good fit for our program. So I'm encouraging you to apply. That's really all it is. But it's amazing how many good students we get that way. So I love networking, and networking has made me what I am today. I think in my career, it makes me stronger. I've made most of the people in my networks are my friends, and I love them. And it's helped me to help other people and to learn more. And this is pictures from the Geoscience Alliance conference, which I'll be talking about in a minute. But some of the things that I strategize with is join other networks, join as many networks as you can. ACEs, somebody mentioned SOCNAS, but I work with the Native Fuse Alliance, Food, Energy, and Water Systems Alliance, and others. And you can build your own network, and that's what I'm going to tell you about the GA at the end of this, so I got to go quick. But be a leader in those networks. Don't just go and sit in your booth. Get out of your booth, go to the sessions, go see the posters, talk to different people. And I always say, don't be competitive with other RUs. It's not a competition. We're all trying to help students. So join a team, be a clique. That's what the RU Geo does so well. And focus on people who aren't networked in, invite them in. And even if they're other starting RU people, connect them to your networks and help to grow the pool of students. So if you can go online, I frequently give talks not just about my RU, but about how to find an RU and some other good RUs I know. Share other people's RUs everywhere you go so that you help to grow the number of students finding the opportunity they want. Again, somebody already mentioned recruiting advisors and mentors. That's way more valuable than individual students. If you make a friend with someone at a college that has the students that you want, I think that's going to impact your program year after year after year. Create your program to be inclusive, to be interesting, to be the topic that Native students or other students want to join. Most of the students that we do recruit who are Native come because they specifically want to work on tribal projects. And then you really have to look to your reputation for supporting students, because if you recruit a student from a college and then they have a miserable time and go back and tell their mentor that, you aren't going to recruit any more students from there. So those are some ideas I had. Remember that the road goes both ways. If you sit at your college and don't go anywhere, you are not going to make the kind of relationships you will if you take the time to get out and visit other colleges, the colleges you want to recruit from. I've been to so many different reservations, minority serving institutions, community colleges, given talks to their students about how to get into an RU, talks at professional conferences and other places. Don't be afraid to ask hard questions like, what are we doing wrong and why are we not recruiting your students, and what do I need to know from you, and how can I improve my program and my recruiting? And if somebody does recommend you a student from a college, and last year, one of my students recommended a student from Tehana Adam down in Arizona. And I'm like, this is great, but then take the student, even if you're a little not sure. I mean, they were a business major and I wasn't sure how they'd fit, but they did very well in the REU, and they're going to go back to their school and talk up your program. But if you turn down the first students that they send you, then you're probably not going to get any more if you recruit from a specific faculty member. If they bother to go to the trouble to find you a student, do everything you can to take that student if you've never had a student from that college before, because they're not going to be able to send you their very best student. They're not going to send you their very best, most promising student first time out. They're going to see how you treat students, which it goes back to your reputation. And then, are you recruiting in the right places? I spent a lot of time when I started this, sending out flyers to schools who either didn't have any minority students or didn't have a program in my program, you know what I mean? So you have to go and you have to find out if the programs that say have a hydrology degree program also have minority students, or if the tribal college you're looking at has any STEM students, because they may or they may not, or they may have very few. You're also competing against the fact that a lot of these students have research. A lot of the faculty at minority serving institutions now have grants of their own that they're placing students in. So if there's a limited number of STEM students, you actually, kind of competition for the faculty you may be actually contacting at that school. So you have to say, once they've done your research program, how about having them come to my program, something like that. That's just some of the thoughts I came up with. And then I have a gigantic mailing list. Maybe it's up to 400 or 500 people right now. I've developed it over the years. Anybody I know of, former participants, I recruit McNair mentors because McNair programs have very highly qualified STEM students all over the country. Any people who wrote letters of recommendation, I tend to add them to my RU list and send them a thank you afterwards for the ones who we accepted anyway. And when you go to colleges or conferences or others and meet people, put them on your mailing list. I only send this list one email a year. I do not spam them. And that one email says, please, will you share this opportunity with anyone you think would be interested? And it's amazing how many people actually even write me back and said, yes, I've shared this. And yes, connect to your nominated student list if you have one. So not only share, but please recommend students. This has been really good for us. And I think it's I make sure that it's sent out so that it's a personal email, not just a spam email. So even if it takes me a day or so, I sit there and send all the emails out. I've been told you can mechanize this, but finally, I just want to talk about the Geoscience Alliance. This is a group I started about 10 years ago, and it's for broadening participation of Native Americans in the geosciences. We have a conference every couple of years. NSF has been supporting our conferences, and we just got supported for the 6th Geoscience Alliance conference, which is going to be on environmental justice, led by Professor Ryan Emanuel, who's our local host at Duke University. Please visit geosciencealliance.org if you're more interested. I love to share your opportunities. We have a listserv that has several hundred people on it who are in the Native community or interested in broadening participation of Native students in the geosciences, including students, grad students, faculty, and others. And I will, if you send it to me at my email address, I will send it out to the list. Otherwise, you can join the Geoscience Alliance. And for most people that works it, they can post directly. Some people it doesn't work, and I don't know why. And put on your calendars next April. We're going to be meeting at Duke University, and I'd love to have RU mentors come and share about their program there. That's it. Okay.
Thank you. That was awesome. I have a question about, so I mean, it's kind of overwhelming to hear like how many people you are in touch with and all of that. And thinking back to when, you were starting, I found the nominating approach really useful. One time I went to an EPP conference, which was a minority conference, and I went to the poster sessions and I looked up which schools people were going to, and then I looked up those schools, looked up the departments, and found somebody who was most closely related, sort of in terms of their discipline. And then I wrote to them and asked them if they could nominate one student. So this is a different approach to sending out a flyer, right? And it was very successful. And it did bring up that question of how do you deal with, like, if people send you a name and you don't accept them, so you have to, it seems like you have to be careful about that, like how many people actually you ask to nominate a student, right? And maybe do it.
Yeah, you can't take everybody who nominates a student. But if I go to a conference and I meet somebody at a college that I'm very interested in starting a relationship with, and I talk to them and they say, yes, they do want to think about us, then I work really hard to take that student. Or if I have somebody who sends me 3 or 4 students every year, I'm not going to start turning down all of their students. I'm telling you, if you find a mentor in in a program that wants to send you students every year, by God, try to take at least one of their students, right? You can't always, but because, you know, it's a competitive process.
Thank you. Thanks for addressing that. I think people have to run, since we're at the top of the hour. So thank you, everybody. This was, I think, an amazing discussion, and just so many good ideas and thoughts. And thank you for sharing also, you know, from your own experiences. And I'm going to share the recording soon. So I'm going to encourage everybody else to listen to this. I thought it was really helpful too. Yes. Okay. Bye. Have a great afternoon and a lovely weekend.
See you in a few weeks, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.